Hi everyone, this is Boris. Welcome to Movie Messenger. So after a long time, I'm just back at recording podcast. I just wanted to talk about three main things today. So first, about a book I read. Secondly, about Deadpool 2, or the books I read. Deadpool 2 and the trailer for Mowgli, which looks really interesting and it's with a really new take. So, okay, this time, like I said, I'm going to talk about a book. First of all, I just saw that Show Me the Meaning, the podcast of my favorite YouTube channel, is following me on SoundCloud, which is super motivating for a guy who loves their content. They are doing what I wish I was doing. I didn't do a podcast for a long time, not because I didn't have anything to say, but I didn't have any guests. But that was wrong. I should have just continued. I'm not the only one who rambles about stuff alone in his apartment. I hear Bill Burr does it on a regular basis. For those who don't know, my name is Boris. Welcome to my podcast. I'm just a guy who wants to be a comic book artist who loves movies. I quit my job last year and I'm teaching part-time to earn money and of course to have enough time to do things that make me happy, like webcomics, podcasting and videos about movies. Like I said, I should have continued. So now I'm working on my webcomics, which I plan to publish on Webtoons, which will be called Tech, T-E-C-H. So look out for that. Let's get started. Today I want to talk about the most recent book I finished reading. In 2018, I decided to read one book a month. So I just read The Alchemist by Paulo Coelho, who's a Brazilian author, and he's quite famous. Like people know him. I mean, it's especially the readers. To be completely honest, the book was okay. Now, of course, the book is a myth, and the reason why I read is because I wanted to read another light book to take a break from *Sapiens*, which is a really brilliant big book I was reading, and it was heavy in theme and so much information. It's rich in knowledge and because I don't know, maybe it's because of this weird combination. Sometimes it also happens with movies. Sometimes if you watch a movie alone, but then the same movie, if you watch it after another better movie, it sort of feels like it doesn't feel like it's a good movie. I guess it's like the Diderot effect, and if you want, you can Google that. It's very interesting. Diderot is D-I-D-E-R-O-T. So again, like I said, this is a myth and I wanted to read another light book. And because I was just reading *Sapiens* just before, and *Sapiens* is a book where the author deconstructs everything and he slowly makes you realize that most of the things that affects our lives are actually imagined by human beings. And then I read *The Alchemist*, which is a story that goes a long way to make parallels between things people go through in life and lets you interpret it the way you want it. I mean, in a way, everything is like that. You do have a conditioning. Your conditioning, your programming impacts the way you look at reality, which is why I always read books and discuss it with people. I mean, because if you just absorb information and you just stay with it, of course you can. Absorbing information is already good, but now we're absorbing so much information. I don't think people take time to just take a break. I think you know what I'm talking about, like especially smartphones. Everybody, I mean, I live in Thailand, in Bangkok, and whenever I take the train, everybody is face down on their phone. I mean, is it wrong? Is it illegal? No, of course not. But I kind of question whether they take time to think about what they are going through, and for me, that's important. So your conditioning or programming impacts the way you look at reality, right? Which is always, like I said, I read books and I discuss it with people so that I sort of put myself out there with my ideas. And as I get older, I become more and more comfortable doing this. Even if the media and our negativity bias makes us think that things are going bad or going on a downward spiral, but the data says otherwise. So in conclusion, I appreciate that The Alchemist exists, but it is not the life-changing book that most people will have you believe. I mean, of course, like I said, there's a literal expression that says don't judge a book by its cover. So don't believe me, just read it for yourself. And I say this about everything, whether it's comics, movies, or novels, or anything. Just even if everybody says things, just do what you want to read. If you are I don't know, maybe perhaps in a coincidence, maybe you're in the middle of the book, and it's maybe a good book that speaks to you because you are going through that kind of moment and this book is helping you. Great. For me, it just felt like I had a friendly conversation with someone, and I needed that. Like I said, I was reading this book to take a break from *Sapiens*. So, like I said, it's a good book, but it's still a myth. I didn't read *Life of Pi*, but I get the same kind of vibe from it. So, in conclusion, like I said, it's not a life-changing book. I don't think it will be a book that has changed anything the way I see things. So, I don't know, just comment. Maybe your interpretation was different. So, actually, the way I came about, and I'm happy because I discovered Paulo Coelho. He's a great author. Because a friend of mine lent me a book by Paulo Coelho called Veronica Decide Morir, translated to Veronica Decides to Die, which is a book about the meaning of life, and was a good read. I asked my friend, he's from Spain, and if he had any books in Spanish, and he gave me this book. Because I learned Spanish and I wanted to refresh by getting some Spanish words into my head and to test myself if I can still understand Spanish. Just a backstory about myself. I grew up in India. I did my higher studies after high school in France and Cambridge, UK. I worked in Germany and now I'm living in Thailand. So, needless to say, I didn't have any chance to practice Spanish, which is a language I love. That's how I discovered Paulo Coelho. That doesn't mean I won't read his books again. So, I got into books way more after I got out of university, after I got out of school. Because I think in school, they kind of force you to read something. And then when you go out, you become an adult and you kind of have the choice to read whatever you want. And now, let's get to the movies. So, let's talk about Deadpool 2. Now, first part is spoiler-free, so if you haven't watched the movie, it's okay, you can still listen. I will give a spoiler alert when I go into the spoiler territory. So first, the genre. What genre is it? Well, it's an R-rated comic book superhero movie. Deadpool, the comic book character, was created by Fabian Nicieza and artist-writer Rob Liefeld. And he first appeared in 1991. So, needless to say, he's a creation of the 90s. Deadpool, his real name is Wade Wilson. Not to be confused with Slade Wilson, aka Deathstroke from the DC Comics. Actually, he has been, like a lot of people argue that he was a rip-off of Deathstroke. So now let's go to the movie. Here's the synopsis. Foul-mouthed mutant mercenary Wade Wilson, aka Deadpool, brings together a team of fellow mutant rogues to protect a young boy with supernatural abilities from the brutal time-traveling cyborg Cable. The movie is directed by David Leitch. Tim Miller, who directed the first movie released in 2016, supposedly left the project due to creative differences. The writers, Red Trees, Paul Wernick are back, and this time Ryan Reynolds is also co-written the movie. When it comes to cast, the main cast from the first movie is back, with Ryan Reynolds as Deadpool. Of course, he was born to play this role. Morena Baccarin as Vanessa, Leslie Huggins as Blind Al, TJ Miller as Weasel, and Karan Soni as Topinder. Along with some new faces, the standout, of course, is Major Crush, Zazie Beetz as Domino, of course, Josh Brolin as Cable, and Julian Dennison as Fire Fist. I love the movie. It's really fun. It's, of course, it's like a lot of people are talking about superhero fatigue, and I think I'm going to make another podcast about that. To be honest, my opinion is that you can't really have a superhero fatigue because these are sort of modern mythologies, even if they are really funny and they break the fourth wall like Deadpool does. They are mythologies. So I don't think there is a superhero fatigue. Maybe there is a superhero movie fatigue, which is different. So I will talk about that in detail in another podcast. The movie is worth watching. It's fun. Of course, it's R-rated, so you can't really take your kids. But if you have a criticism to make, is that, and this happens always with sequels, you tend to always unconsciously compare it with the first one. And now, as I was watching the movie, it kind of, to be completely honest, it kind of felt a little bit too long than it should have been. But again, like I said, you don't get bored. Like it's just, the time just flies by. But I don't know, maybe like the first one was so crisp and went straight to the point and was a really brilliantly made movie. Of course, now they have more budget, they have more action sequences. And actually, to be honest, I think this one is I haven't read all the Deadpool comics, because there are so many. But the ones I've read, I feel like the second one is closer to, in terms of structure, in terms of places they go to in the story. It's closer to comics, and which is really good because it is a comic book movie. Now, this is where, spoiler alert, if you haven't seen the movie, just stop listening here and stop listening. I'll put the time maybe in the description where I talk about Mowgli trailer, because I can't talk about this in much more detail without spoiling it. So spoilers, okay, 1, 2, 3. Okay, so let's start with cameos. So like I said, we have surprise cameos, and Stan Lee doesn't have a cameo in this movie because before the movie Logan, starring Hugh Jackman, they showed already a short footage for Deadpool 2 where Stan Lee already made a cameo. The first one is when Cable. So I don't know if this is in order, but I'm just telling them as I remember them. So the first one is when Cable time travels and comes to the present timeline in the movie. He comes across two rednecks sitting on a pickup truck, and clearly one of them is doing a Matthew McConaughey impression. And a few minutes before in the film, Deadpool makes a joke about Matthew McConaughey. And after I saw the credits in IMDb, it turns out it's Matt Damon doing a cameo. Of course, he's disguised enough to be unrecognizable. I have to watch it again, and the other redneck he's talking to is Alan Tudyk. For those who don't know, Matt Damon did an impression of Matthew McConaughey on David Letterman's show. It's on YouTube, check it out. So, the other cameo which I wasn't sure about is when Deadpool is gathering the team, there's an invisible guy called the Vanisher. And when the Vanisher dies, electrocuted, we get to see his face, and it's Brad Pitt. Now, I wasn't sure about it because when you see the face on the scene when he's electrocuted, it looks like they stuck a 2D mask on Brad Pitt over somebody's face, but the same way like when at the end of Deadpool 1, when Vanessa takes Deadpool's mask off, he's wearing a paper cutout of Hugh Jackman's face as a mask on over his real face. But actually, I looked at the IMDb credits and actually it is Brad Pitt. And I also read in the trivia that actually Brad Pitt was one of the actors considered for the role of Cable, so I'm not surprised. The other big cameo is the X-Men, all the X-Men actors from Bryan Singer movies. The first Deadpool movie, The Merc with the Mouth, makes fun of Negasonic Teenage Warhead, saying that in the X-Men mansion he only sees Colossus and herself, as if the studio couldn't afford another X-Men. Well, in this movie we see them having a meeting in the room behind Deadpool as he rants about X-Men to Colossus, and the Beast closes the door slowly so that Deadpool can't hear them, or they don't want Deadpool to see them. Okay, so now those are for the cameos. I don't know, maybe I'm sure there are more cameos, but I haven't noticed yet. So I am going to watch it a second time. The main message of the movie is that I feel that it's because Vanessa gets killed because of what Deadpool does. Deadpool is a mercenary who kills people for money. He decides not to have a family, but he realizes that family is what gives you purpose. Deadpool and Vanessa have a conversation before she gets killed where she says, kids give us a chance of being better than we used to be. This is not a new theme, like a lot of superheroes struggle with the idea of family, because their life is dangerous and it affects the people who they surround themselves with. So yes, he can't have a normal family like you or your next door neighbors because of his cynicism, but he can have a family like the one he gets at the end of the movie with the remaining team members. I will do a video about this, and maybe we'll go a little bit deeper up on the analysis of Deadpool 2 and what Deadpool teaches us. But this is also a message for youngsters, I feel like, who are sort of confused about the requirements of society and the definition of family in this era. Also, another big theme is change. After near-death experiences, of course, Deadpool cannot be killed. He tries and fails miserably. As a bonus, he pokes at Logan where Wolverine dies, so he says that he's going to die on this one too. In this regard, this movie, the sequel is closer to the comics, like I said, because of the structure of the action scenes, the craziness. There's a lot going on here, and there's a lot more action scenes here. And if I remember correctly, in the 90s, I don't know if it was a 90s run in comics, but Deadpool did have a sort of an affair with the Lady Death, which is a character in Marvel Universe. And if I'm not mistaken, I think she's also Thanos' girlfriend. But anyway, like I said, really worth watching, really a lot of fun. And my conclusion is that at a certain point, if you become really cynical and you just make fun of everything, my interpretation of Deadpool is that he knows that he's in a movie, like he breaks the fourth wall, but moves forward in the plot. I had a thought, what if Deadpool just left the screen, like Neo just flew at the end of the first Matrix. I mean, which he does at the end. So I think this movie has, in terms of Marvel movies, the best after credit scene, because I can't talk about everything in detail, but actually Ryan Reynolds was given a chance to play Deadpool on Wolverine Origins, I believe the name of the movie is, and they just changed it completely, and it was something that he always makes fun of in the first movie, and he hated it, everybody hated it, and so in this one, the after credit scene, actually we see him appearing in the scene where Wolverine at the end, Hugh Jackman discovers Deadpool with his, of course, the mouth sealed and mouth sewn, or I don't. He doesn't have a mouth, and so on the Deadpool comes to the side. He shoots the wrong Deadpool, and then he just says, "Just correcting the timeline," and then so that's exactly what he does. And then the next thing he does is he goes to Ryan Reynolds' place, where Ryan Reynolds is just about to read the Green Lantern script. And then he just shoots him in the head, and the blood just splatters on the Green Lantern script. And Deadpool looks at the screen and says, "You're welcome, Canada." And then that's where the movie ends, actually. I don't know if there was another credit scene, but I didn't stay. So, okay, before I wrap up, I wanted to talk about Mowgli, the new movie directed by Andy Serkis. So, of course, it's going to be released I saw the release date was in October. So, as I said, when I'm in IMDb, sometimes I just go to see if there are any interesting movies who are going to come out. At first, I clicked to watch the trailer because the poster itself was very interesting. I mean, is very interesting. The movie is based on Rudyard Kipling's novel Jungle Book, which Disney changed and sort of made it a Disney version, like for kids. The first thing it made me think of, I don't know if a lot of people will be able to relate to it, but the poster looks like the digital version of the 50s EC horror comics. Now, if you don't know, these were horror comics which were censored, and there was a really big issue legally, and I mean, there's a whole documentary about it on YouTube. So it reminded me of the 50s EC horror comics, like Vault of Horror, Tales from the Crypt. Maybe in HBO there was a series based on these comics called Tales from the Crypt, where every episode will be a story with a surprise ending at the end. It was very interesting for me. I never read the book, but now I want to before the movie comes out, to compare the book and the movie. I recommend watching the trailer with Andy Serkis' commentary. But it's different from the Jungle Book released in 2016, directed by Jon Favreau for Disney. Apart from the fact that it's meant to be closer to the novel, and it's very dark in tone. The talking animals are done with performance capture, so the emotions on the animals' faces reflect the actors' performances. Check out the trailer with the commentary to see how they achieve that, and it's really amazing. Andy Serkis, of course, is the greatest performance capture artist, starting from Gollum in The Lord of the Rings and until Caesar, which I don't know why, because his performance as Caesar was so good. I'm really mad that he didn't get an Oscar, because his performance is so subtle. I mean, I can't really explain. I can talk about it in another podcast. But like I said, so starting from Gollum to Lord of the Rings until Caesar. And in this one, he directs the movie and plays the character of Baloo, the bear. The movie also has a great cast. So, Cate Blanchett as Kaa, Benedict Cumberbatch as Shere Khan, Christian Bale as Bagheera, Naomi Harris as Nisha, to name a few. The role of Mowgli is played by Rohan Chand. His performance looks intense. The movie seems to be about belonging, as Mowgli is to decide whether to stay with the humans or who see him as an outcast, or live with animals who raised him. Needless to say, I'm looking forward to it. So that's it for me. If you don't know, I have a YouTube channel also called Movie Messenger. Check out my videos and subscribe if you like the content. I have a video about Ready Player One coming up. If you like this podcast, please follow and share them with your friends. Until I catch you again with more movie talk, movie analysis, movie news, or reviews of books, this is Boris, the Movie Messenger, signing off.